when you met that young man, you don't want to discourage that person. What kind of conversation do you have with such a person?
My first question is to understand, why are you doing this? Why do you want to do this business?
Youth fund, we have women fund, we have other avenues. We even have table bankings. We have all these other avenues. All those are ways of making money.
These people who we are pushing all this money to, are they prepared to receive it? Are they aware that they are going to use this to make money to pay back?
I want to ask you about people starting off and they have come to you. I know you have answered about the story and everything, but when you have met that young man, you don't want to discourage that person. What kind of conversation do you have with such a person?
So research tells us most SMEs don't see their second birthday, and research is something we always want to believe in. So even as I start this conversation with this gentleman, at the back of my head, that statistics can't run away. So I have to ask myself, what is his plan? And then the other challenge that also then comes into play is our typical Kenyan entrepreneur. So today Lucy starts a chips stall by the roadside. Tomorrow you'll get two other people starting chip stalls by the roadside. They didn't think about how Lucy decided to put their chips. They just see Lucy making her chips from the morning to evening. They think, this Lucy is making a lot of money there, so I also want to start. So with that opening remark, my first question is to understand, why are you doing this? Why do you want to do this business? Do you want to do this business because you saw Lucy doing this business at that point, or because you have a good plan on how you want to run that business? And for me, the critical piece is then to understand your value chain. Value chain in basic English is to know, for example, using Lucy's example, she is buying containers from, call it the US, deliver it to Kenya. So look at, do you have a place you're buying this container from? Yes. Which is point ABC. How long will it take you to deliver it here? 1 month. How long will it take you to sell this container? 7 days. So if you want me to give you money payable in 2 weeks, yeah, it's possible, because after 7 days, you'll have sold the goods and pay me. Will you pay me in full? No. I'll pay you only an installment so that the rest of the money I can go to buy another. So that flows, then you can get into a conversation. But if then, when you're telling me about your business plan and it goes to a point then like, nafikiri, then I'll keep off. Because even you yourself, you're not so sure about what you want to do. Yeah.
And Lucy talked about education, and the other time we had a conversation, you said you have a program. Can you tell us a bit more about the program? So anybody listening, maybe they know the location or the time or something like that, or where they can find more information about that education program on entrepreneurship.
So a Stanbic Bank, we focus on 3 aspects with SMEs, maybe just to help me build a foundation on that. So the first one we focus is traditional access to money. So we want to see how much money we can give you. The second piece is access to markets. And when we talk about access to markets, is to facilitate, for example, if I use one of the markets we've facilitated customers is, we in the dairy value chain, we are able to finance both the milk producers and the milk producers, the farmers, and the entire supply chain for the milk. Then the last piece is access to information. So in access to information, we have a program within the bank that we call Accelerate, and the Accelerate program its main mandate is to train businesses to grow beyond the first generation. Most SMEs don't see the second generation, so they only see. So if you, again, Lucy, allow me to use your example, I'll say Lucy is the first generation. So there are times when after Lucy ceases to exist, the business goes down. So one of the training aspects we then try to give SMEs is to see that Lucy's business continues to grow even after Lucy ceases to be there. And ceasing to be there doesn't mean that she's dead. Just not choosing to be actively involved in the business is also moving into the business. So the program that we call Financial Fitness Academy, it's like an average of 2-hour program where we are able to train SMEs through the 4 life cycles of a business. If I use a personal human being to explain the 4 life cycles, so you have your life as a person who's just come out of college, just starting off with your first job probably. That is one life cycle. Then when you've just gotten married and you have your 1-2 children, trying to catch up with the children life, that is the second life cycle. The third life is now when your children are now in college, university, almost getting out of the home. That is the third life cycle. And then the fourth life cycle is now your children have grown up, they moved out of the home and now married. Then you're going back to be alone again, you and your wife. So that is the fourth life cycle. So we replay that into the business structure. And in the business structure, then coming back into that is we look at business where Lucy is there as the only person doing everything in the business. Lucy coming in to have some people within the business supporting her doing the business. And then finally, Lucy leaving the business to run even if she's at home, having a cup of tea.
And how could listeners get access to that education?
So so there are 2 levels of access. So we have the first level of access is on the Stanbic Bank website. There's a portal where we've put in study material for anybody who wants to access that. But then on this other side, we do train entrepreneurs in small cohorts, because somebody said you cannot boil the entire ocean. You can only boil it bucket by bucket. So we are trying to pass the information to SMEs in small groups. I think about 3-4 years ago, we had a partnership with Strathmore Business School, and we did entrepreneurial training across the country in 10 towns across a span of about six months. So every 2 weeks, we were training a group of SMEs in a location. And the training cohort was about between 50. Our target used to be 50, but the experience we got, and I always say the Mombasa experience is the most interesting one. Day 1, we had 50 entrepreneurs in the room, because it used to be a 3-day training. Day 2, we had 110 people in the room, where these 50 people went and called somebody else to come and say, come and participate in this training. And when we run this training, we take the participants through in knowledge sharing and expect them to go and share with somebody else out there. Because we can't teach 48 million Kenyans, but we can teach 2 people who can then go and teach 10 other people. So that's the approach that we run. We have an innovation hub within our Kenyatta Avenue space on the first floor, which is an exclusive area where these SMEs can come and then plug into our knowledge stations.
Have you heard about that program?
Probably, maybe because I have not been an active member of Stanbic. In fact, when he has talked of Strathmore, I remember that I registered for an entrepreneurship course, which I don't know whether it was run by you or who. But along the way, I dropped just like any other Kenyan. So I think that's part of ignorance. Yeah. But yes, when you get educated, question is, how well do our young people receive this information and participate? Because sometimes when you say you're running this and this program in connection with this and this school, how well will it reach to that person who you need? How well will it reach to that kiosk person who you can train to own a supermarket? Yeah, because that's for me. I find it today. I would rather venture more onto that person who is starting, because they have the potential of growth, than even the person who is already there. because these others have a potential of growing and becoming me. You understand? I may be importing today, and maybe I've grown somebody who is a broker or through is able to buy this a lot of stock. The next stage for that person is to import. But if I grow that person who is down there, I will walk a journey with them. You get? So I agree with him probably with the resources and all that, but I disagree on the other side that how well does this information get to the common Kenyan? Get to that person who, the target market. Because if you come in and you put in a kiosk person with me in the same room, we'll be thinking on different wavelength. Me, I'll be thinking of something different from whatever may be my problem may not be their problem. Yeah? So different targets, and not only to Stanbic, because I believe there are many avenues of getting funds. Because we might be zeroing into the bank, whereas we also, like I said, we have youth fund, we have women fund, we have other avenues, we even have table bankings, we have all these other avenues, all those are ways of making money. So it's maybe a gap. It may be a gap that
I always call it one of the bigger challenges we have in this country is we have the Serikalis idea mentality.
Yeah.
So everything people sit around, they keep thinking of Serikalis idea.
But it's usually like that. As in, that's what happened. Maybe we should ask ourselves, maybe why is it happening? Why do we find people like lack knowledge?
And maybe Alan, they call themselves learned, he might remember who said this. There's an American president who is reported to have said, think first of what you can do to the country before what the country can do for you.
Yeah.
I never remember the name of the American president. So you need to first think about what you can do for yourself. And then the rest of us will like your story and then help you build the story. But if you sit back and wait for me to help you, then I'll run out of patience to help you. And that's what I always want to put across. So if I always remember we had this lady in the neighborhood where I used to stay some time back. And she will come every day, you'll meet her on the streets within the estate begging. So one day I told her, instead of coming to beg, like she'd done a circuit, you'll see her around weekends. I told her, you know what, come in, this often, I'll give you this kind of task, come and do it, I'll pay you X amount. And I was promising a good amount of money. She told me, no, kana pesa yako. So she had made an occupation in borrowing. Yeah. If you use, I think it's Wayakiwe, before Chiromo, there's a group of women who for the period I've been in this Nairobi, I've always seen them borrowing, begging on that, just before the turn to Chiromo funeral home. You'll always see some ladies there with a child on the back. So for them, the begging has become an occupation. It's their business. So some of the people that we then want to go out to help out, you remember, you're not helping them because for them, that begging is their business. They wake up in the morning to strategize how to beg. Here you want to make them strategize how to do business. So that's where the disconnect comes in. And I think that is where the bigger challenge comes in. So, and then just to pick up on what Lucy had mentioned, if I look at how we run our program, remember I said we run them in small cohorts because you don't want to bring people with divergent interests into one room because group dynamics, you'll get one person talking too much, one person not talking, and one other person feeling inferior. So you then want to choose people who are almost within the same line of thought and then build the content to fit that. So even when you're running the trainings with Strathmore Business School, we used to read the profiles of all the applicants and ensure that we put them into the same group so that even the examples that will be used are aligned. So using Lucy's example, Lucy is an importer. I can't have the same conversation with Lucy and say Alan, and let me use the Alan for this example, who buys a bell for camera. because this person who buys a bell for camera only thinks about what I can sell today. Lucy thinks about what she will sell, because a container takes about 3 weeks to arrive. So Lucy thinks about how long, when she brings the first container today, she already thinks about how she'll get the next container in the next 1 month. Alan, on the other side, thinks about how he will get the next bell from Lucy to sell tomorrow. Their line of thought will be different. So then the conversation I'll have with Lucy and the conversation I'll have with Alan will not be the same.
And coming to Alan, how well do you think people who come to you, they are aware of what happens when it comes to accessing finance? Do you think that they are well informed, or also do you participate in educating them?
So financial literacy, in my own casual observation, is very low even among well-educated persons. Well-educated, I mean someone who has a degree or diploma. So, and this is not just for certain causes. I think all causes. I will speak maybe about lawyers. When I got admitted to the bar, there is no cause or any unit which I've done in my whole life to tell me how to run a business, to tell me how to plan for my financial health as a business. And all this you have to learn in the school of life. You run a business, you know if you don't keep your books, you wouldn't know whether you're making a profit or a loss. So my own casual assessment is that financial literacy is low, and we may not be getting better because now access has been made so much easier because of the mobile loans. All you have to do is have a phone, download an array of apps which you could get a loan from each one of them, and you could end up with an amount which gives you a chance to start a business if you thought of doing so. So you don't need to present yourself in a certain way. Let's say do your profit and loss, or if you're doing projections, or if you're keeping your statements and reconciliations, things which are very basic for any business to do, so that when you're presenting your story to Collins or any other financial institution, they can easily pick it up, and there won't be a lot of follow-up on gaps. So financial literacy, I think, is on the low, and we have a lot of opportunity. And this is the sad part, because all the funds which have been mentioned, Women's Fund, Wealth Fund, Youth Fund, and many others which have come and gone, and others which will come. Most counties also have now their own funds. But these people who we are pushing all this money to, are they prepared to receive it? Are they aware that they are going to use this to make money to pay back? Does it look like a bribe for them to vote for a certain person during the voting patterns we have every 5 years? Some of these funds, are they designed to last for cycles beyond 1 or 2 regimes? So the legal framework, I think, in terms of the financial sector, especially the retail access to finances, might have gaps which private sector, and I'll give credit to colleagues and their bank because I've experience with them, are doing their best to fill that gap. And that is not enough still, because they're not designed to educate masses. They are bank, they're in business. They get money from shareholders and investors, and they push it to the other side as credit. They get profits for people who put money in the bank. So they're not set up to educate masses. They educate the segment which suits them. Now, the rest of us who fall out here, you've come from campus and you're feeling very entitled with your nice degree and good transcripts, and you're looking for a job and you don't get it. And after 6 months to a couple of years, you try your hand at business. And even then, you're feeling entitled to be given capital, either from your mom, or your dad, or your close friends, or even relatives and anyone else. But you're not prepared to know what you don't know. That you need to learn how to present yourself and your story to the person who needs to give you financing. And once you have the financing, the discipline, like Lucy says, it's not just about getting the money. When you get money from a bank now, for her, it keeps her in check. You have to be disciplined. This money looks like a lot, but it has a purpose. It has to go to that purpose. It has to serve that purpose. And hopefully, when you do 1, 2, 3 things right as you planned, it will yield you returns. Yeah. So that in my experience, casual observation, nothing to do with my profession, is lacking in our masses.
Okay. Let's talk about mistakes, personal mistakes, especially. Now you have mentioned about financial literacy, and you had to learn. Maybe can you say one mistake? Some may not call it a mistake, maybe a lesson that you learned it the hard way, and what can you tell somebody maybe not to fall in the same?
So I will say always get the right professionals to do the right job if you're in business. One of the things I didn't do early enough was to get a proper accountant to do my books from the word go. So I think my first year was just chaos. I have M-Pesa statements which show a lot of inflows, I have outflows, I have cash payments, I have a receipt book which only has 20 leaves used, So that first year was chaos. But I will advise, if you're getting into business, you don't need to have a full-time accountant, even on a need-to basis. Once a month, once a week, whatever it takes, depending on how you work, get them to keep your books properly. When the time comes, it will be the story you tell to the financial institution, and to make it easy for you to access financing. And financing is broad. For the level you're talking about here, maybe it's banks, circles, relatives. At other levels, it includes also bringing on board investors, the capital markets, and also there's foreign funding coming from all over the place. So playing at a certain levels allows you to access different financing models. And if you're starting a business, depending on where you've placed yourself, get those professionals. If it's lawyers, get lawyers. And I think one of the things you can't do without as a business is a lawyer. I'm not saying you must come to MMS, but whoever it is who you can work with, be close to one who you can always consult. These deals you do and shake hands and you say it is well, they don't go very well sometimes. So you need to make sure you're documenting your contracts. Your supply process is very neat. You have orders, you have acknowledgement notes for delivery, you have invoices for payments, you have receipts once paid. So processes and things which just keep your business neat. So I would say bring on board professionals, let them do their work, do your business, be the business person.
See any mistakes?
In entrepreneurship, you make mistakes and you learn from them. I would not call them mistakes, I would call them lessons.
Yeah.
Because had I not passed through particular stages, I would not be who I am today. Had I not made particular mistakes, I would not have learned not to keep off some rain.
What was the mistake? The lesson?
Personally, I've ever looked at the time period of how long it takes to import and the waiting time and all that, and took a shortcut. Decided to buy a whole container from somebody who had imported up to Kenya. So I was like, this is easy. I go borrow him money for 60 days. I will have bought like 2-3 containers, traded with them and returned the money. But it came back to me and I lost a lot of money out of that. Yeah.
What was I don't see anything wrong with that, but you said
because I had not done my due diligence of understanding why would this person want to sell the container in Kenya? What is wrong with the goods? I had not done a background check. Where are these goods coming from? You get? But that is like any typical Kenyan. You want shortcut, you want easy money, you want to grow rich very fast. Yeah? So I made that mistake and I bought a container in Mombasa, brought it in the market. Little did I know that the same goods had been injected in the market. So I struggled to sell. The prices that I had been given, I never took my time to research and understand, are these prices viable in this market? What is the quality? So I made a mistake. I lost almost the whole of my capital. But thanks God, you make a mistake today, you wake up. You learn from it, you move on. Another mistake could be, I support his idea, sometimes you ignore the small things like professionals. You ignore spending that 10,000, 20,000 for somebody to read your contract. You ignore giving an accountant that 15, 10,000 to do your maths and tell you are making a mistake or not. So we typical Kenyans, we assume we are one roof which has everything. Oh, today I have sold, so I have banked. So in the evening I just go and say I sold 10 bills, I banked. But I'm not having somebody who is keeping me on check to tell me the amount of money you are spending is too much, or your loans are becoming too much. Okay, yeah? So ignoring the professional part of it, with time I've learned and I have started engaging. I've started having an auditor, an accountant, someone who can move on with my business if I'm there or not there, who can deal with the government aspect, because taxes have to be paid. So instead of me having that headache of my taxes, I have somebody who's running with it. I have a lawyer who I consult, one-off when I need something checked. So I'm left now to think about growing my business. Yeah.
So we will come back and understand, Collins, you've been in banking since 2000, isn't it? I'm sure, I'm very curious to know about the lesson or the mistake that caused, because I can't imagine somebody who has been there for that long to make a mistake.
So when a customer walks to my desk and he doesn't have documentation, so there are two options to do it.
But the moment you get into the system, you find it easy.
We come from the same background where we're afraid of loans. Most of us Kenyans, you ask your parents, you're like, hey, what's your HQ loan?
Sometimes when you meet the so-called successful people, I say that because you don't know their story.